So you've written your main character and you have a pretty solid story idea, but you're starting to realize on going over your manuscript that the thing is pretty flat, and that thing being mainly your side characters. They're space fillers, and they don't really matter to you. You feel nothing. It's almost like fatherhood without the financial responsibilities. Your side characters serve some purpose in the story, but sometimes you find yourself wishing they would just disappear from the story altogether, or worse, you don't feel anything at all, besides maybe shame for attempting to write in the first place. So, what do? Just scrap the whole thing, throw it in the trash, soak it in gasoline, and light the building on fire? No. Not yet, anyway. Today, we're going to take a look at 3 stages of side character writing, aka 3 stages to not burn down your apartment. What we want to do is look at easy places to improve our story, so in this case, side characters. Side characters are muy importante, but we normally overlook them as new writers because writing an emotionally provoking book without a complete emotional breakdown ourselves is hard enough, let alone telling several great stories within an even greater story that makes you not commit arson. So today we're going to be going over how to fix this, and not just how to fix this like, go back and redo everything you've done wrong because you're a terrible person that needs to suffer. I mean like, hey, we're going to add a few sentences and maybe a scene or two in order to unfart your secondary characters, and we're doing this using Uncle Iroh from Avatar, The Last Airbender. Sounds great. You're welcome. Where do we start? Put down the matches. Step 1. Identify an archetype for your secondary character. And what I mean is, write your crappy first draft, then do what you do best and stereotype your characters. Now, since we're using Iroh, let me just catch some of you up to speed in case you're not as old as me or your childhood wasn't as good as mine. Iroh is a side character to a primary antagonist turned hero, and in the first third of the series, he is essentially a chubby wizard that speaks primarily in fortune cookie advice and functions as comic relief. At start, he was a pretty bland character that we have all seen thousands of times. So why am I using him as an example? Well, somewhere between season 1 and 2 of Avatar, someone on the writing team had a big brain energy moment and realized the show had something special. Like, yeah, it was already pretty good with a lot of action and the primary cast was solid enough, but it could be better. How do we do that though? How do we improve upon something that's already pretty bueno? First, I need you to think of a story cast like a brick wall. Yeah, our main characters, the bricks, need to be well made and sturdy to make the wall, but we also need rich and well developed side characters to give those bricks support and provide the overall story with structural integrity. None of the characters in Zuko's half of the story did this initially. He was just an angsty teenager who wanted to catch the Avatar so his dad would love him. This is already on paper, voice rehearsed, animated, shown to thousands of kids. The second half of the Avatar series was as follows. Zuko is mad, Iroh is a funny uncle who drinks tea and makes us laugh. They get the job done, but they aren't really anything groundbreaking. How do we fix this problem then? We can't go back and rewrite anything. All you have to work with is Zuko, his quest, and his tea drinking Confucius Uncle Iroh. It's a rocky start, but correct me if I'm wrong, the manuscript wasn't lit on fire. So, now the job, once we identify a character archetype, is blah la 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 la. Step 2. Tweak that archetype by combining traditional examples and implementing tiny moments for potential growth, depth, and originality. What does that mean? Let me put it to you this way. Back in the day, my spirit animal was a nerd. But what kind of nerd? Smart, smelly, charming? This guy? There are different subdivisions and specialties of nerddom. The same way there are different subtypes of wizards and mentor characters in fiction. You just need to take the time to look deep and determine for yourself the idiosyncrasies of your side character. And this is where Iroh finally blossomed. Breaking Iroh down to his most basic archetype, he is a wizard. He is the wise mentor. The closest thing we had to an idiosyncrasy or subtype was that Iroh was a tea fiend. Any of us who have ever written will look at him during the initial stages of the series and think, oh, well, this is nothing special. No agent, no publicist, no producer is going to read this and think, wow, this redefines a genre. No, we'd think, I must be a terrible person. I'm going to go burn down my house now. What did I say? Not yet. Look, we need to start somewhere, and a tea drinking wizard that spits fire and sagely advice is a solid start for step number 1. Now we need to build on it. Not with gasoline and matches. but with backstory and emotion that explains why Iroh is the walking fortune cookie that he is. This transition in Book 2 of the series is pretty smooth. Why? Because Iroh had brief moments in the first season of Avatar where he showed the potential for depth, which the writers could build on. He explains to his anger driven nephew that firebending doesn't come from the body, but from the breath. Basically, a piece of advice which runs contrary to the rest of the firebenders we see. He calls out Zhao for sucking as a human being while simultaneously disarming him physically. He's like a Gandalf Yoda hybrid here, before indirectly telling Zuko that he finds him honorable. Lastly, he helps Team Avatar save a fish. Being nice to animals is always easy brownie points. Anyway, in Season 1, we see at least 3 instances where Iroh is more than just a goofy uncle, which, again, isn't perfect, but it starts to establish the second layer of his complexity. We are building here, and it's necessary to start somewhere. Like the relationship with your cat, it doesn't happen overnight. We need time plus trust plus consistency to get something special. I mean this. He's not just kind of a cool wizard. He's not just a less crazy Jedi master. He's not just a bearded Buddha. Surface level, he is a mix of all 3 of these well known characters and archetypes mixed into one new, semi complex character. And that's what we need to establish a unique surface level. So, how does this apply to you? Look at your current characters. You're telling me there isn't one spot in the entire script that you can't add a sentence where your side character does something cool or unique? All it takes is a short line of contrarian philosophy or quirky behavior to establish interest in a side character. Bonus points. Have them do this quirky behavior a few times, because then I can trust your character's consistency. When your character is consistent, blah 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 blah, now you get to explain to me why your character has this weird quirk or philosophy. Because once you've established this surface level appeal and the potential for more than meets the eye, you can grab your butter and extra slippy pants because we're going deep. Depth is important.
Gets the people going.
Adding character depth happens after you make me like a side character during the early stages of your story. Like, not love. I don't want to love your side characters at the beginning of a story. Nobody does. We all have trust issues. Put down the matches. Let me explain. If you took someone on a first date and they were like, "Here's my tragic backstory. Don't you feel bad for me? Pretty sad, right? Now you'll understand all my annoying quirks and there will be no secrets and we'll get married and have 3.5 kids named Paul because you understand me so well." Ooh, that would be friggin' weird and not fun, and now you have to skip town and change your phone number again. But if you're on date 6 with someone you really think is cool, but they always pull away when you touch their right shoulder, and then they finally trust you enough to say they broke that shoulder when rescuing a kitten from a manuscript fire, then you're like, "Aw, I understand you now, and that's so relatable and adorable, but also tragic." See, isn't that better and less crazy? We do this with side characters, and we get this with Iroh. In Zuko alone, we learn that Iroh was a beast. He was a general whooping Fanny and bossing Say before his son died and he stopped the siege. We then learn Ozai stole the throne from Iroh because Iroh no longer had an heir. Watching the show, we now understand so much more of Iroh's character. He has lost everything except for his relationship with his nephew. Aw, that's adorable, but also tragic. Think of it like a magic act. There is a setup and a reveal. We have some mysterious object in a hat, namely why Iroh is the way he is. Why isn't he a warmonger like the rest of the royal family? Why doesn't he value power and conquest? Why does he try so hard to help guide Zuko? Ta-da! It's because his son is dead and Iroh feels like he didn't do enough to save him. Doesn't it just give you the not-so-warm fuzzies? We also get further traumatic depth in Iroh's tales of bossing Say. It's not even a full episode, it's maybe 6 minutes long and has absolutely nothing to do with the central story, but it makes the story way more deep because now we care way more about this chubby, fire-breathing Gandalf because we understand why he tries so hard to help people. When he gives Zuko advice, it's no longer because he's a personified fortune cookie, it's because he doesn't want to lose his nephew. When he overpowers someone but doesn't obliterate them, we understand it's because he's seen the worst of war. When he saves a fish, didn't kill the last dragons, talks lady problems with Aang, he isn't just some filler character with no function beyond a mouthpiece. He's an awesome dude that you want to have tea with because he's not just a reskinned version of Gandalf or Yoda or Dumbledore or whoever. He's Iroh, the Dragon of the West. Yeah, he's a wizard. Yeah, he's the stereotypical mentor character. But when we give him some quirks like his tea drinking pacifism in conjunction with his history as the Fire Nation's top general and the last dragon slayer, we get some nuances. We can then explain these nuances through short backstory and brief asides which add to the main story, makes the relationships more complex and rich, and it makes for some, oh god, yes, this is the closest I've come to feeling since burning myself with lit cigarettes moments, and that is what writing is all about. Lighting some life and emotion into your less than perfect characters and not lighting your manuscript on fire. So don't commit arson, don't quit on your story, evaluate your story by improving your side characters, and most importantly, keep writing. The end.